I'm going to talk about a radically different way of looking at health. And this new way is looking at how nature functions and trying to work in resonance with that. The human body is so incredibly magnificent. You know, let's just look at a couple examples. It's like we have billions of chemical reactions happening in each of our 37 trillion cells, happening every second, faster than the speed of light in a coordinated manner. So what's coordinating all this? What's supplying the energy for all of this? This coordination of this kind of complexity right now is not being explained by current science, you know? And another great example where the explanations just fall completely flat is the human heart. So, you know, we've all been taught that the heart's a pump, and it pumps the blood through the miles of blood vessels, and you know that they start a little bigger and then they get smaller, 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 and they end up in these dense capillary beds in the tissues. And they get so small that the diameter of the capillary is actually smaller than the diameter of the red blood cell. And that's actually by design because, you know, you want a lot of contact, I would imagine, of the red cell with the blood vessel so they can exchange gases and all of that. And if the heart were solely responsible for pumping the blood through the miles of blood vessels, it would have to generate 100 times more pressure than it actually does. So where's that energy coming from? Another example is coming out of biochemistry. There's a sub-study in biochemistry called stoichiometry. And it's looking at how we derive the energy to fuel our bodily processes. You know, so it's been long believed that we derive the energy from the food we eat, the air we breathe, and the water we drink. But current science is showing that that's falling short of the truth. Like if you take a 125-pound person and they're burning at 98.6 degrees 24 hours a day, you'd have to eat like 5,000 calories a day to supply the fuel for that. You know, and there's this interesting movement right now, intermittent fasting. You know, they're eating less and they feel better. Where is this energy coming from? And although I'm referring to it as a new science, you know, in many ways it's not really new. There have been people from 50 to 100 years ago that understood, you know, like Wilhelm Reich and Royal Rife, Ruth Drown, Nikola Tesla, Likovsky, Walter Russell. These individuals all understood about the biophysical nature of biology and our connection to the universe at large. You know, these greats understood, but they didn't have access to the technologies that we have access to. So with the understanding from long ago, combined with today's technologies, we're literally on a precipice of being able to affect human health in a whole new way. The opportunity to live elegantly until 150 years old is not going to come from discovering a supplement or a new pharmaceutical. It's going to come from understanding one principle. And that is that we are connected with something called the unified field. So what is this field? I've been thinking about it my whole life. It's the sea of energy and information we exist within. It's the unified field infuses us with life and orchestrates our physiology. We can see multiple examples in nature. You can look at a school of fish like a mile long, and the front fish and the back fish move in perfect unison. And scientists have looked at that. They've thought for sure there has to be sonar moving through the water, coordinating this, but like actually the coordination is happening faster than sound can travel through water. So what's coordinating it? And there's other examples like big aspen groves where scientists have actually put an electrode on one tree at one edge of the forest, and then at the other end, 2 miles away, cut off a limb of a tree. And the one with the electrode registers that trauma immediately. How is that communication happening? So, we see that with like salmon spawning and turtle migration, and it's like all of this can be answered if we recognize we live in this dynamic of a unified field. The field is what provides the coherency, the information, the energy, the organization. It explains, all of these things, and the chemical reactions happening in the body, the stoichiometry, et cetera, et cetera. What's the structure of the field? Like, what's the fabric of the field? What is it? And why does it contain energy, and how do we know? If you look at subatomic particles, and you get down to like the pixel size of the universe, that's thought to be like the smallest right now, which is the Planck, and you look at Planck oscillations and vortices, and you kind of calculate how much energy is coming from that, and then you calculate how many would be in a cubic centimeter of space. Cubic centimeter. So in that cubic centimeter, it's thought that it's 10 to the 109 joules per centimeter cubed. And, okay, so what does that mean? What does that mean? It's like, then you can use Einstein's equation, E equals mc squared, and convert it to mass. So if you convert it to mass, it's 10 to the 93 centimeters cubed. Like, what? 10 93 zeros times 3. We can illustrate it like, well, in the size of a sugar cube, there's more energy than 30 million stars. And we're not even aware of it. We're not even aware of it because, it's ambient to us. It's like the fish in water. We don't feel it when we're moving our arms, so we don't even know it's here. But think of an atom. Like, an atom is so little, so small, 10,000 times smaller than the wavelength of light. But you release the energy of an atom, and what happens? Atomic explosion. You can have like this much material in an atomic bomb and level an entire city. What that's doing is releasing the energy that was holding it together in the first place. So like, what holds an atom together, and what holds a molecule together? What holds a planet together? Solar system. It's the energy of space. And this is the potent field we exist within. This is where the energy of all living things comes from. This is where the energy that's needed to maintain our physiology comes from. And you see this in a child. They're luminous. They're like bounding with energy, like running around like energy bunnies, and it's so obvious. They're like tapped in. And then what happens? It just kind of starts to fade as they age. And why? And then once in a while, you even see it in an adult. They radiate, and they're bright, and they have tons of energy, and they glow with that vitality of youth. Is it just because they eat well, they have clean living, they have good genes? It's a lot more than that. So, it's like they're resonating with this energy source. They're extracting more energy from the field. Let's look at what else the field contains, because we just talked about how it contains information, energy, but I'm also saying it contains information. So there was recently a paper published in the Journal of Neuroquantology entitled From Cosmogenesis to Consciousness, the Space-Time Memory Network. And this is a paper that was peer-reviewed and published in a prestigious journal. And what it maintains is that memory is not actually in the brain, but it's in the field. Around the brain, it's in the field. And the brain is like an oscillator, acting like an antenna. like a radio receiver. And it's receiving your particular set of memories. And science has actually had a really hard time finding memory in the brain. People thought it was in there because if someone has a stroke, damages a little part of their brain, they may have trouble accessing a particular set of memories. But maybe we could look at it like their antenna is broken, at least right there. So, much like our computers are storing information in the cloud, and if our Wi-Fi is not working, we can't access that. This may explain memory difficulties in things like Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia. If your receiver, your antenna, is covered over with amyloid plaque, like you see with Alzheimer's patients, it's not going to receive information very well. So it turns out that the brain is not the only thing that's being thought of as a radio receiver, radio transmitter. There is a lot of research looking at how DNA functions like this. Scientists are measuring the emanations with subtle instruments and then actually, conversely, like projecting frequency onto DNA and influencing gene expression. It's a really cool area of science right now. And it's also believed that a lot of the information is turning genes on, turning them off, and deciding when that's going to happen is actually stored in the water around the DNA. Probably no accident, we're 60% water by weight and thought to be 99% water by number of molecules. And the reason is that most of our molecules are very big, where water is so little, so it's not by atoms, but it's by molecules. So we have so many more of those. And so anyway, Gerald Pollack and other scientists are showing us that water can organize into a structured form. And that's primarily how it exists in the body. It just means that the molecules are arranged in a particular structure. And we'll just suffice it to say tonight that when it's structured, I feel that it acts as a conduit between our bodies and the unified field. So here's the new paradigm. All health, all disease, all aging depends on the level of information and energy exchange with the field. So our degree of health directly correlates to the degree to which we resonate with the unified field. There are going to be things that enhance this and things that take away from this. Things that are going to improve the resonance and things that are going to decrease it. There's a term in physics called sympathetic resonance. And it means that, like, if I had a tuning fork in the key of C and I were to strike it, even one way over there, if there was a tuning fork over there in the key of C, it might start to ring. But if there was a tuning fork in the key of B or F, it wouldn't ring. But the one that those do, because they're the same shape, they're in resonance with each other. As we go through life, things happen to us, such as, we experience traumas, we get exposed to toxins, we develop infections, we get exposed to bad electromagnetic pollution. And each of these things has a unique energetic signature associated with it. And the energetic signature of these things is dissonant with our biology. So it's going to create almost like static within that's going to diminish the coherency of communication and energy exchange with the field. So here's an illustration. Let's say you have a solar panel, and it's a beautiful sunny day, and the solar panel's extracting energy from the sun and producing electricity. And then this big cloud moves in and obscures the solar panel from the sun. So like in this example, you could say, hey, the solar panel is like the body, and the sun is like the unified field, and this cloud moving in is like the the energetic signature of a toxin, the dissonant signature of a toxin that's obscuring the communication. Obviously, there's something else at work here. We know that energy and information is coming from the field, and that our health really depends on how well we resonate with the field. What could happen if, let's say, someone's really ill, and then coherent communication with the field is suddenly reestablished? Or maybe spontaneous healing. We've all heard anecdotes of that, right? So some of this is still theoretical, some of it's factual, but if we think like this, it could really explain many of the phenomena that have been almost impossible to explain before. And thinking like this opens up so many new possibilities. Like I was saying earlier, our current level of thinking, the way we've been thinking, is not providing the solutions to our current health challenges. Because it's like, we've been so focused on the individual, particles and molecules within the body, and totally ignoring what's outside the box, like the whole field that we exist within. I feel like at least we need to focus on both. That beautiful continuum between matter and energy. And, so with this understanding that's been gelling for me, I've become extremely interested in practices and technologies to transmute these dissonant signatures and reestablish communication with the field. I definitely think it's like the speeding up of technology is allowing us to access information in the field better. And we're definitely moving into the era of energetic diagnostics and energetic therapeutics. And I think there's a lot that needs to be looked at with all of that. It's like there's research that needs to be done. I really think like when you look around and you say, wow, that person looks good. That person doesn't seem to age. Like, what's up with that person? What are they doing? It's meditating usually. I think the most important thing, like more important than sleep even. And then you have, of course, sleeping and eating well and drinking good water and all of that. Like these things cannot be underestimated. And positive thinking, huge, 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 because, a thought engenders an emotion. And usually if it's a negative thought, you're going to have these like low vibration emotions going on associated with that. And they have a signature. And if you have too many of those low vibration signatures, you're not going to resonate with the field very well. So, it's like when you have a thought that's like loving, you are going to have these very high vibrational molecules that are released in your body. It's like going to transmute the lower frequencies. But okay, great. So enjoy, guys. You can just like move around and learn. Thank you so much for coming.